I'm Terry Rivers from Dickinson FleeTec Academy, and I'm here to talk to you today about parasitic draw. So parasitic draw is, for example, the driver complaint would be, my truck starts fine all week long, but it won't start on Mondays, or it starts fine all day long, but it won't start in the morning. So that is something drawn on the battery, drawn at dead overnight or over a weekend, and we have to figure out what that is. It's a very common problem, especially this time of year when diesel engines, the oil's thicker and, the engine needs more to start. So the idea of a parasitic draw, first off, is the saying make before break, meaning we have to make the connection before we break it. And that is, we connect this parasitic draw switch in between the vehicle's harness and the battery so that we can connect our shunt amp meter here in a minute, in about 20 minutes to a half an hour after our modules have gone to sleep, and we don't have to re-break the circuit. That way those modules don't wake back up. But before we can turn this on and put our shunt amp meter in there, we have to know that the amp draw is low enough so that we don't blow this 10 amp fuse right here. So you have to use an amp clamp to determine that. So this meter here is set up to read the amperage on this meter and on this board, this vehicle with a parasitic draw, and it's shown that we're drawing roughly 1.7 amps of parasitic draw, which is a lot. All right, the maximum parasitic draw is 75 milliamps. That's 0.075 amps. So all we need to know with the amp clamp, though, is if it's safe to put our shunt amp meter in there, and it is. It's under 10 amps, it's under 2, and that's a 10 amp fuse. So now we can turn our shunt amp meter on and measure it down to the milliamps. So we're actually at 1.5 amps, right? So 1,500 milliamps, and the maximum is 75 milliamps. All right, so notice the difference. An amp clamp's only good to plus or minus 2 amps under 10, but a shunt amp meter can tell you up to the milliamp. All right, so we have to figure out what our draws are. Now you can see things that are on with your visual inspection, and you can see things that are wrong with the harness with the visual inspection. All right, you can also feel things. Use your 5/6 senses to diagnose vehicles. That sixth sense is common sense, right? Electricity is converted into heat, light, or motion, and heat is always one of them. So you can feel that. But sometimes, like this PDA right here feels cool to the touch, but is it really? So you can use this infrared meter, get a sample of the ambient temperature of 73, and then you can shoot the PDA and it's 82. All right, so if you couldn't see that it's on, you can tell for sure that it's on. Okay, on no vehicle on the planet is there ever a relay on with the ignition off. Okay, and this relay felt warm to me. So let's find out. So this relay is at 73, and that relay is at 96. So for sure that's on. Also this XM radio, that's not on, right? Same as ambient temp. And this alternator right here, it's 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, that's a lot, right? So typically, if I have a habit of touching the alternator with the back of my hand, right, and if it's warm and the rest of the engine is cold, you know that alternator's got a bad diode in it. All right, so let's just disconnect that real quick and see if that's part of the problem. So we go ahead and disconnect the alternator, and now we can see here that the amperage went from 1.5 to 300 milliamps. It went from 1.5 amps, 1,500 amps, down to 300 amps. All right, so we still have a massive parasitic draw here, but we also know there's an issue with this alternator. Now you can see that this is on, and you can unplug it, right? And you can see that amperage went down, but it's still too high, right? I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to look at this. This is a suspect area. We saw this weather pack seal during our visual inspection. We're going to go ahead and disconnect that. And as you can see there's a water short in that connector. All right? Which can latch a transistor on, and this relay is turned on and off with a transistor. All right? So that water short, fixing this problem, got us down to 28 milliamps, which is under 75 milliamps. All right? But lastly, we can see that this is on too. Okay, so this one clearly, this charge port is the key hot charge port. That shut off when we got rid of this fault. But the battery hot charge port should always be on with the key off. But you want to talk to the driver about leaving stuff plugged in. Now that's not a massive parasitic draw, but let's disconnect it. And it brings us down to 2 milliamp draw. All right, again, max parasitic draw is 75 milliamps. That finds all of those draws, and you know, your vehicle will start tomorrow morning or next Monday. This is Terry Rivers from Dickinson FleeTec Academy. Thanks for watching.